Evan walked home under a quiet sky. The streetlights hummed. A soft wind touched his face. He checked his phone. No messages. He thought about dinner, about sleep, about nothing special. Then the lights blinked once, twice, and died. The whole street fell dark. He stopped. His breath showed in the air like it was winter, but it was not. A cold metal smell slid over the road, thin and sharp. He looked up. The stars were gone. A black shape hung above the block, round and heavy, like a lid on a pot. A beam fell from the sky. It was not bright. It looked like water made from glass. It touched his shoes and climbed him in a soft rush. He tried to jump back. His legs did not move. The beam wrapped his chest. He could not shout. He could not breathe. The road tilted under him and the world poured upward. The beam let go. He fell, not onto stone, onto a floor that felt like cold bone. He blinked. He was in a long, dim hallway. The walls were gray metal, rippled as if frozen waves. Strange. Green symbols crawled along the edges, changing shape like lazy worms. The air tasted like a battery. Somewhere far away, a door clanged shut. Then he heard it. A cry. Another. He was not alone. Evan pushed himself up. His hands shook, but his mind did not. He had been afraid before, on bad nights, in bad places. He knew one rule. Watch first. He stayed low and peered around. The hallway bent left and right. A thin glass panel on the wall showed a map, dots and lines, moving like a slow heartbeat. He could not read it, but he knew it meant order. Order meant routine. Routine meant a way out. Footsteps clicked. He slid behind a rib of metal and held his breath. 2 guards passed, tall and lean, their armor like the shells of black beetles. Their helmets had long lenses that twitched as they walked. They pushed 3 prisoners in front of them. A woman, a man, a kid with red shoes. The kid's shoes squeaked once. A guard slapped the wall and hissed. The shoes went quiet. As they passed, Evan noticed small things. The guards kept their left hands near a belt light. The belt light pulsed when they neared the doors. The right hands held short rods. The rods crackled softly like angry bees. The prisoners kept eyes down. No one looked around. Fear made them blind. Evan forced himself to see. He tested his pocket. Nothing but a bent paperclip and a bus ticket. Useless, he thought, and then stopped. No, not useless. He rolled the paperclip between fingers. He breathed slow. He counted steps of guards in his head. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, longer pause. There was a rhythm to the place. He could ride it. He moved. Quiet. Small. He hugged the shadow and slid to the next cross corridor. A thin pipe ran along the floor. He laid the paperclip near a vent so it glinted in the low light. Then he coughed, loud and rough. The sound echoed. He ducked back. A guard turned. The lens twitched. It found the glint. The guard stepped forward and away from the belt light. The door lock beside him did not pulse. For a second, the door sat stupid and open. The prisoners were already past. Evan darted out, slipped into the gap and pressed himself into a narrow service passage. His heart beat fast. He smiled, small and tight. Good. Still thinking. The passage was hot. Steam hissed through thin valves. Beyond the grate he saw another hallway, this one lit red. A low siren moaned. Somewhere, something heavy moved with a scraping roar. The whole ship shuddered, like a whale hit by a harpoon. He kept moving. He counted doors. He watched for patterns. Every 4th door had a blue line at the bottom. Every 3rd panel flashed a warning symbol like a hooked star. He did not know what they meant yet, but he saved them in his mind. If he lived, they would matter later. The ship shook again. The red lights turned to a deeper, meaner red. A harsh voice spoke in a language like broken glass. He did not need to understand the words. The tone said, trouble. A round window appeared. At the end of the passage, a little porthole with thick glass. Evan pressed his face to it. His mouth fell open. Space poured past, black and endless, filled with floating scraps of light like ash. And there, sliding along the outside of the ship, was a shape he could not name at first. It looked like a whale, but thin. Like a snake, but with wings. A living thing made of night and embers. Scales shone under starfire. Its eyes were coals wrapped in frost. It opened its mouth and he saw not teeth, but bright lines like the ribs of a star. A dragon, he thought. The word was silly. It was also right. The dragon hit the hull. Metal screamed. The passage bucked. Evan slammed into the wall and bit his lip. His blood tasted like copper. The porthole showed the dragon turning, as if it danced with the ship. Then its head stopped. It looked straight at him. He knew it was nonsense. He knew it was a trick of fear, but it felt real. The dragon saw him, not the ship. Him. The siren rose to a howl. Blades of light slid out from the dragon's sides, thin as moonbeams, cutting slow circles in the hull. The metal softened and peeled like fruit skin. Air roared. The porthole cracked. Evan ducked back, hands over face. The service passage sucked at him, hungry for the stars. He crawled along the pipe, fighting the wind. A grate tore free and flew past, whirring. He reached a junction and pushed into a wider space with straps on the walls. A storage bay. Boxes bounced. Tools spun. He grabbed a strap. His arm jerked like it would rip off. He held on. With a deep final groan, the hull tore open. Light flooded the bay. Not white light. Warm, living light, the color of flame seen through honey. It wrapped the floating tools and boxes and threw long shadows. The wind became a scream. Objects flew past him into the hole, and the stars blinked like cold eyes. Then the dragon came through. It moved like a river and a blade at once. Its wings folded and unfolded, not fabric but patterns of light. Its body coiled in the bay, too big, too near, and somehow it fit anyway, like space-made room. Evan's eyes watered. He could not blink. The dragon's face filled his world. The coal eyes were old and new at the same time. Something pressed against his mind. Not words. A feeling. A question. A choice. The strap cut into his palm. His fingers slipped. The wind pulled harder. He felt the bay tilting toward the open dark. He was going to fly out. He was going to die between the ship and the stars. The dragon leaned close. Heat rolled over his skin, gentle, not burning. The feeling in his head sharpened. Come. He let go. He did not fall into space. Claws like curved glass caught his jacket and lifted him as if he weighed nothing. The dragon pulled him against its warm chest, wrapped him in a curl of light, and pushed away from the tearing metal. Behind them, the ship cracked like old ice. A wave of fire bloomed silent and bright, turning the red halls into a sun for half a breath. Evan's mouth opened in a wordless cry. The dragon dove through the blaze, a shadow of flame inside flame, and carried him out into the dark. The ship exploded. The shockwave rolled out like a ring of broken mirrors. Evan felt the dragon turn, fold its wings of light, and rush toward a small, hidden moon that had not been there a second ago. The heat faded. The dark grew close. The claws held him firm, careful, like he was something chosen, not caught. He tried to speak. No sound came. The dragon's coal eyes met his again. The feeling returned, clearer now, like a voice inside his bones. Ode. The word pulsed through him. He did not know what it meant yet. He only knew one thing as the moon's surface opened like a secret door. This rescue was not free. Evan woke to warm breath and a soft glow. No stars. No alarms. He lay on smooth stone, inside a wide cave lit by blue crystals. The air smelled like rain on hot iron. His hands shook. His chest ached where claws had held him. He was alive. A shadow moved. Firelight rolled across scales. The dragon lay before him half-curled, wings folded like glass fans. Its eyes were the same coal red he had seen in space. They watched him, patient and heavy, like old mountains. Evan sat up slowly. "Thank you," he said. His voice was thin. The dragon's jaw opened. Not teeth, bright ribs of light again. A sound filled the cave low and deep, like thunder under water. It was not language he knew, yet his mind bent toward it, like metal to a magnet. The dragon spoke again, a slower rhythm as if it lowered the sky to meet him. The sound flowed over the crystals. Symbols formed in the glow. Evan understood nothing. And then a small device slid across the floor, stopping at his knee, a silver pebble with a soft hum. He touched it. The pebble warmed and climbed his wrist like a tiny fish and rested under his ear. The hum became words, simple and spare. Human. I saved you. You owe. Evan swallowed. Oh, what? The dragon's wings lifted an inch. Light moved along the edges, like sparks trapped in glass. Guard. A royal child. The air. A sharp wind pushed through a crack in the cave wall and brought a far sound, like a sad horn. Evan looked that way. Blue dust floated. Storm clouds turned above a hidden sky. Guard from who? He asked. Hunters, the dragon said. A warlord. He follows her mark. He wants the old door. If he finds her, many die. If he wakes the door, more die. Evan breathed slow. The silver pebble hummed against his skin. He tried to think like he had on the ship. Pattern, order, path. Why me? He said. I am no soldier. The dragon's eyes narrowed with a glow like banked coals. You count. You watch. You find small doors. Humans make rules bend. It was almost praise. It felt like a weight. What if I say no? Evan asked. His mouth was dry. The cave felt smaller now. The dragon's head dipped. The hum turned cold. Then I put you back where I found you. Between breath and dark, silence pressed on the crystals. Evan looked at his hands. He remembered the beam, the porthole, the scream of metal. He remembered the kid with red shoes. Fear pushed at him, but under it something else moved. A stubborn line. A human line. He lifted his eyes. If I guard her, he said, what do you give me? The dragon did not roar or laugh. The old eyes simply watched like a judge that had seen this bargain many times. 3 gifts, it said. Sight, warmth, and a name. Light rolled from its chest and wrapped his shoulders. A cloak grew there, thin as smoke, strong as wire. Heat flowed through it, soft and steady. A second ribbon of light formed a small lens that hovered at his temple, then sank into his skin. The cave brightened. Fine lines on the rock sharpened. He could see small things, crystal veins, hairline cracks, hidden doors. A name? He asked. The dragon's breath touched his face. Not fire, a memory. A starfield inside a heartbeat. I am Razur, it said. The name slid through the pebble and also past it into bone. Say it in need and I hear. Evan stood. The cloak fell right. The lens hummed. He felt the shape of the cave as if he had walked it for years. He heard the thin sound again, the horn but closer now. Not a horn. A beacon. Razur turned his head. A wall of rock unsealed like 2 quiet doors. Blue wind rushed in and pulled at Evan's cloak. Beyond, a storm world stretched to a dark horizon. Ash dunes lifted and fell like sleeping beasts. Lightning stitched the clouds. At the far end of a broken ridge, a small orange light blinked, weak and stubborn. Her pod, Razur said. Her blood is strong. It calls enemies. The beacon ticked again. Beep, 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 beep. Evan felt the pattern change. Not random, a code, a warning. Razur's eyes brightened. Choose, human. Step out and the hunt begins. Evan tightened the cloak. He looked at the storm, at the lonely light that refused to die, and at the shadows moving against the lightning, too many wings for birds. He took one breath and stepped toward the open world. Behind him, the cave doors started to close. Ahead, the beacon stuttered in a new rhythm. Help me, hurry. Evan moved down the ridge with slow steps. The wind pushed hard. Ash rose around his boots like gray water. The orange beacon blinked from a cracked valley below. The lens at his temple traced the ground and showed thin lines, hidden holes. A weak bridge of stone, a safe path. He listened. The storm made many sounds. Under them, he heard others. A faint click. A soft whir. Not thunder, machines. He crouched and slid. The cloak held his heat close. The wind carried his scent away. He reached the valley floor and found the pod. It was half-buried, nose down, scorched black. One wing panel bent like a broken arm. Blue royal marks ran along the hull, faded but proud. The door was jammed. Inside, the beacon flashed in fast beats now. Beep, beep, beep. A warning and a plea. Hold on, he said, though no one could hear. He checked the seam. He wedged his fingers in, but the metal did not care. He stopped and breathed. Think small. Bend rules. He took the bent bus ticket from his pocket and slid it along the seam until it caught a latch that his lens had shown. He flicked. The door cracked. He set his shoulder, pushed once, and the jamb gave way. Warm air spilled out, sweet and sharp like crushed herbs. A figure lay inside, strapped in, pale skin with a soft pearl sheen, silver eyes half open, hair like thin threads of light, armor plates over a simple suit. A small crest lay against her collarbone, pulsing with the beacon's beat. The girl lifted her gaze. Her eyes took in Evan's face, his human jaw, his clumsy hands. She stiffened. "Stay back," she said. But the pebble under Evan's ear turned the sound into simple words. Her own translator still worked a little. "I'm here to help," he said. "Rizur sent me." At the dragon's name, her eyes flared, then narrowed. "A beast pet," she said. "He likes toys." Evan swallowed the sting. "He saved me. Then he saved you. He asked me to guard you. Hunters are near. Hunters are always near," she said. She tried to rise and winced. Blood had soaked a band at her waist. Not a mortal wound, but a bad one. "Let me fix that," Evan said. "No." He ignored the no. He used his cloak's warm edge as a pad and made a simple wrap. He kept his hands steady, light, respectful. She watched his fingers with distrust and a small thread of surprise. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Sarah. I am Evan," he said. "We must move. And where?" she asked. Evan looked toward the ridge. The lens drew faint shapes in the air. Drones. 3, maybe 4. They swept the sky like sharp fish in a black sea. "Up," he said. "And crooked," she frowned. "Crooked?" "Not straight," he said. "We leave many tracks, so the drones lose count." He searched the pod for anything useful. He found a broken mirror plate, a pack of heat stones, and a small coil of wire. Good. He planted 2 heat stones under the pod's nose, covered them with ash, and left the coil nearby. He tucked the mirror piece in his cloak. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked. "Making copies," he said. They moved. Evan walked a snaking path, stepping on hard rock when he could. He dragged the coil behind for a few meters, then let it drop to make a false trail. He set a heat stone in a hollow and used the mirror to send a brief flash at a drone. The drone turned to the flash. "Good. Follow the wrong light." Sarah tried to hide her limp. She failed, but she kept going. She watched him work. Her breath came short. She said nothing. They reached a split in the ridge. 2 narrow cuts, one safe, one a dead drop. Evan threw the last heat stone down the bad path. The lens showed a drone lock onto that warm dot and dive. A thin whine built over the wind. The other drones were closer now. Too close. Evan pushed Sarah into the safe cut. The walls rose on both sides. Ash fell like slow rain. Their footsteps made soft prints that the wind began to erase. Behind them, a shape landed on the ridge with a hiss. Not a drone. A hunter in beetle armor. Taller than a man, with a lens eye that glowed like a sick moon. Its rod crackled. It sniffed the air and turned its helmet toward the safe cut. Sarah's fingers touched the crest at her throat. A thin light grew along its edge. Evan lifted a hand. "Wait." The hunter took one step toward them, then stopped. It raised a second device. A black jammer. The pebble at Evan's ear screamed and went dead. The lens flickered. The world dimmed. The hunter looked straight at them and started to walk. The jammer hissed. Evan's pebble went dead. The lens at his temple blinked and turned dark. The world lost its quiet lines. He felt blind and small. The hunter stepped into the cut. Beetle armor. One glowing lens eye. The rod crackled with hot blue teeth. Evan raised both hands slow. He kept his palms open. He stood a little in front of Sarah. He did not speak. Words would not help now. Sarah's crest pulsed once, faint. She pressed it flat against her chest to hide the light. The hunter sniffed. It tilted its head, listening for breath, for fear. Evan moved an inch. He pointed down, then to the left wall, then made a short pulling motion. Sarah watched his hands. She nodded, tiny. Evan slid his heel back and touched a thin, loose stone. He remembered the coil of wire he had dragged. A short length still hung from his belt. He looped it around the loose stone with 2 quick fingers. The hunter took another step. Evan gave the wire a sharp tug. The stone popped free and clacked down the dead drop path. The sound bounced 100 times in the narrow rock. The hunter flinched toward the echo. Evan moved. He grabbed Sarah's arm and ran deeper into the cut. The hunter turned back and saw them. It roared. The jammer's tone rose. The rod spat a bolt that tore a fresh scar in the wall near Evan's ear. They ran. Wind pushed ash in their faces. The safe cut bent left, then right, then opened on a wide shelf above the dunes. The sky looked like a broken bruise. Lightning stitched the clouds again and again. Evan dropped, grabbed the broken mirror plate from his cloak, and flashed it once across the shelf. A bright glare. The hunter fired at the flash and hit rock, not flesh. Dust rained. Sarah lifted her light spear. She took careful aim and released a pale bolt. It struck the hunter's chest and sprayed sparks, not a kill but a stagger. "Go," she said. They slid down the shelf on ash that flowed like cold sand. At the bottom, Evan threw the mirror plate into a second cut to the right. It flashed as it fell. The hunter chased the light for 2 steps. Then it learned. It turned left, sniffed, and followed the warm scent of 2 living bodies. Evan opened his cloak and shook it once. Heat bled into the wind and scattered. He closed the cloak tight again. He hoped it was enough to smear the trail. The dunes rose ahead, a field of gray waves. Pitted towers of rock stood between them like old teeth. Evan ran toward the teeth. He tied the last short wire between 2 low spikes and kicked ash over it. A trip line, simple and cruel. "Low," he whispered, forgetting the jammer. He pointed 2 fingers down. Sarah understood. She crawled under the line. Evan followed. The hunter pounded after them. Its heavy step hit the wire. It stumbled and crashed forward. The rod fired wild, burning a hole in the dune and sending a plume of hot dust into its own lens. The hunter shrieked and tore at its helmet. "Now," Evan said, and this time the word did not matter. They ran. They reached a broken cinder arch. Under it lay a rusted way station half buried in ash, a long, low building with a dead sign and a cracked window. A place for travelers on a world that no longer welcomed travel. Inside, the air felt old and still. Shelves lay overturned. A console rested in the corner, dark as a grave. Evan rushed to it. He pulled the translator pebble from his ear and cracked its casing with the mirror's edge. A tiny cell flashed weak light. Sarah frowned. "You break your tool?" "I borrow its heart," he said. He slid the cell into a slot beside the console and bridged 2 rusted contacts with the bus ticket's thin foil. He pressed a dead switch and held his breath. The console coughed. A dim screen shook awake. Lines crawled. A local map grew, slow and scratchy like a ghost drawing in dust. Outside, the hunter roared again. Its steps pounded the floor of the way station. It was close. "Too close, hold them," Evan said, pointing to the door. Sarah nodded. She raised her spear and set her feet. The screen finished its crawl. The map showed the dunes, the ridge, the storm lanes. It showed a mark for Gate Sanctum. A safe path line glowed in pale green. Evan traced it with a finger. His stomach turned to ice. The safe gate was not in some quiet valley. The line ran straight into a black zone marked with 3 sharp symbols. Even Evan could read that warning. The gate lay inside the warlord's stronghold. A shadow fell over the cracked window. The hunter's lens gleamed like a small moon. It raised the jammer and the rod together. Evan looked at Sarah. She looked back. No translator, no time. They understood anyway. Run, fight, steal the gate. The door blew inward. The door blew inward. Dust and splinters filled the way station. The hunter charged through the gray cloud, rod crackling, jammer shrieking. Sarah stepped forward and struck. Her light spear flashed like a white nail. The hunter twisted. The bolt scraped its shoulder and burned shell to black glass. It swung the rod. Evan grabbed a fallen shelf and shoved it hard. The blow hit metal, not bone. Sparks rained. The jammer's tone rose. Evan's lens tried to wake and failed. The console flickered. The map dimmed to a thin ghost. "Left!" Evan shouted on instinct. Sarah moved left. The rod stabbed air where her heart had been. A sound rolled across the dunes. Not thunder. A slow, deep call like a mountain breathing. The roof cracked. Blue crystals in the walls rang like tiny bells. Rizur came down through the hole he made, wings folding as if the cave itself bowed to let him pass. Heat washed the room. The hunter shrieked and fired again and again. Bolts hit the dragon's scales and died like rain on coals. Down, Evan said. Sarah threw herself behind the console. Evan dropped. Rizur's head dipped. A cone of warm light swept the hunter. Not fire, not quite. The armor sagged like wax in noon sun. The lens burst with a small pop. The jammer fell and screamed itself silent. The hunter crawled. It tried to reach the rod. Rizur pressed one claw and ended the reach forever. Silence took a slow breath. Dust fell in soft threads. Rizur looked weak under the glow. His wings shook as they closed. A dark crack ran along one scale. Stormwork had cost him. Move, he said, and the word reached Evan without the pebble. It reached bone. Others come. Sarah stood, bright eyes on the dragon. You brought him, she said, chin high at Evan. Why? Because the door will ask a price, Rizur said. And the human knows how to change prices. Evan's throat tightened. He pointed to the dim map. The gate is inside the stronghold, he said. We go there? We must, Rizur said. The warlord cannot pass it yet. He needs a pledge to wake it. If he gets yours, child, the old weapon will open like a red flower. Sarah's hand found her wound. Her voice lowered.
What pledge?
Rizur's eyes were a slow furnace. He spoke like stone turning. A life bound to a lock. A vow strong enough to fool the door into thinking death has paid. Evan stared. So someone dies? Not always, Rizur said. But the door is old. It loves grief, Sarah shook her head. I will not give a human life. I will not give any life. Evan looked at the dead hunter. He thought of the kid with red shoes. He felt a tight anger rise, clean and sharp. We do it another way, he said. We fake what the door wants. We send it a shadow of a pledge. Enough to open it for you, not for him. Rizur watched him. How? Evan tapped the console's frame. The crest has an echo. My broken pebble has a cell. The gate has 3 needs, power, key, beacon. We can borrow power from their own lines. Use your crest as the key, and switch the beacon away from real worlds. Give it a dead moon. Sarah frowned, then nodded once. The sanctum keeps conduit shafts, she said. Old ones. If we climb them, we reach the gate heart. Rizur's gaze softened, then hardened at the roof. He sends more, fast. A harsh engine note cut the storm. 3 shadows crossed the hole. Not drones. Elites. Taller hunters with wing rigs and nets that shone like wet glass. One threw the net. It spread over the roof hole and fell like a sheet of lightning. Rizur leaped, caught it with both claws. The net crackled. His wings jerked. The blue crystals all went dark at once. Sarah grabbed Evan's sleeve. Move! They ran through the back hall as the elites dropped into the room. The console died with a last sad blink. The map vanished. Behind them, the net screamed and Rizur roared, a rough, torn sound that made the shelves shake. Evan didn't look back. He counted doors. 1, 2, 3, blue line. He kicked the panel. It jammed. He kicked again. It opened into a narrow service shaft filled with cold air. Up, he said. Up, Sarah said. They climbed into darkness while metal boots hit the floor below. An elite voice clicked. Take the air alive. Kill the human. Rizur's roar broke into silence. Evan's hands bled on the rungs. He whispered to the dark, to the plan, to the idea that rules can bend. Hold on. We changed the price. The service shaft rose like a cold throat. Metal rungs bit into Evan's hands. Sarah climbed above him, breath thin, jaw set. Far below, boots hammered and voices clicked like knives. The elites were fast. Left turn soon, Sarah whispered. Smell of old oil, Evan sniffed. There, a sour scent. He lifted his cloak and pressed the edge into the seam. The fabric warmed and loosened the old seal. A panel slid aside. A maintenance crawl. They slipped in and pulled the panel back. Darkness hugged them. Evan counted heartbeats. 1, 2. Slow. The fear tried to lead. He would not let it. The crawl ended at a grated vent. Through it, the stronghold opened like a steel hive. Catwalks hung over a vast shaft. Far below, a round chamber glowed with a steady, unnatural light. The gate heart. A ring of black stone slept there, veins of red pulsing faint as a pulse in a wrist. Between the vent and the gate, there were problems. Guard posts, scanning beams. Cameras shaped like glass beetles and a set of numbered doors that moved in a rhythm like a song no human should know. Sarah touched her crest. It answered with a thin line of light. "The sanctum still remembers me," she said. "Good," Evan said. "We ask for a favor. Then we lie to it." They eased out onto the catwalk. Evan kept low. When a scanning beam swept by, he watched its edge. The beam had a soft fall-off. He crawled just inside that soft border, letting the system mark him as a ghost instead of a person. Sarah mirrored him, light on her feet, royal training turning to silence. A camera beetle clicked. Evan froze, then slid a broken screw from his pocket. He flicked it. The screw bounced where the beam was strong. The camera turned to the noise. They moved past. At a junction, a guard post loomed empty for a tick, then manned again as the doors sang their metal song. Evan counted the beats. 1, 2, 3, pause. On the pause, he pulled Sarah through. They pressed into a shadow behind a coolant pipe. Voices drifted, air close. "Human with her?" Sarah's eyes asked a question. Evan answered with a finger to his lips in a small circle. "Patience." The old anger in him had cooled to a bright point. Solve, bend, make doors where none exist. They reached the upper rim of the gate chamber. A narrow stair hugged the wall and dropped to a small service console behind a black pillar, the perfect place to lie to an ancient lock. Evan took out the Pebble's stolen cell. It flickered like a tired firefly. He set it on the console, then pulled wire from the seams of his cloak. He stripped the ends with his teeth, tasted metal, spat. "The gate needs 3 things," he said, soft. "Power key beacon." Sarah pressed her crest to the console. The stone veins brightened, slow and wary. "Key," she said. "Power," Evan said, and slid one wire into a conduit crack where the stronghold's grid hummed. The lights around them dimmed for a breath, then steadied. The console woke. Lines crawled in a language his lens would have translated, if it lived. He didn't need it. He read the layout by pattern. 3 nodes, 3 cables. "Beacon," he whispered, eyes on the 3rd node. "We send it wrong." He opened the node and swapped lines, guiding one through a cut he made with the cloak's hot edge. He pointed the output at a dead moon he remembered from Rizur's map ghost, a world that ate signals and gave nothing back. Footsteps. 2 elites. Close. Sarah set her spear to stun, not kill. "We end them quiet." Evan shook his head and tapped the coolant pipe. The pipe hummed. He turned a small valve and let cold fog breathe across the floor. The elites stepped into the mist, their wing rigs dampening. The first slipped. The second grabbed him. They crashed together in silence, nets tangling on their own frames. Sarah blinked, impressed despite herself. "You make their rules, fight them." "Best kind of fight," he said. He turned back to the console for the last lie. The pledge pulse. He needed a rhythm that felt like a life. He set the cell to flicker in a pattern. Strong beat, weak beat, skip, like his own frightened heart in the shaft. He wrapped the signal with the crest's echo so the gate would smell royal truth around a human shadow. The console asked for confirmation. A small circle pulsed. "Wanting touch your hand," Evan said. Sarah hesitated. "If it binds me, it won't," he said. "We are giving it a mask, not our blood." She pressed her palm. The circle burned bright, then dim. Below, the gate ring woke. Red veins flared to living fire. The chamber trembled, dust falling like gray snow. Deep inside the stone, something old turned its face toward them. A metal cry split the air. More elites poured onto the catwalks, nets ready, rods bright. Evan pulled the last wire and slammed the lever. The pledge pulse fired. The gate opened, not wide, not calm, like a wounded eye forced awake. A wind rushed up, pulling heat and sound. The stronghold's alarm screamed. Doors slammed, then blew back open under the pressure. Sarah looked at him. For an instant, the storm in her eyes broke. "Partners," she said. "Run," he said, smiling with fear and pride. They ran as the first net flew and the world tilted toward the ring of living stone. The gate howled. Wind dragged at Evan's cloak and pulled dust into a spinning cloud. Red veins in the ring burned like hot rivers. The stronghold shook. Screams rose from far halls. Elites rushed the catwalk with nets bright as lightning. Evan dragged Sarah behind a black pillar. A net slapped the stone where their heads had been and burned a smoking scar. "Down the right stair!" Evan shouted. They ran. The stair shook under their feet. An elite landed above them, rod high. Sarah snapped her spear and threw a white bolt. The elite's wing rig sparked and failed. It fell with a heavy crash. On the floor of the chamber, the gate pulled air like a hungry mouth. The pledge pulse beat from Evan's small cell, strong, weak skip, wrapped in the echo of Sarah's crest. The ring believed it. It wanted more. Steel doors burst. The warlord walked in. He was taller than the elites, armor black and red, helm crowned with sharp points. 2 lens eyes burned. His voice felt like gravel poured into a furnace. "Little air," he said. The words slid through the broken pebble in Evan's ear, thin but clear. "I will take what you owe." Sarah lifted her chin. "I owe you nothing." The warlord raised a jammer the size of a hammer. He twisted a dial. The air screamed. Evan's lens stuttered and died again. The console lights dimmed. Rizur fell through the high vent like a torn banner and landed hard. One wing dragged. His scales were cracked. He still looked like a living storm. He bared his bright ribs of light. "Come," he said to Evan, to Sarah, to the plan. The warlord swung his rod at Rizur's face. The dragon met it with a claw and bent it like soft tin. The warlord dropped the broken rod and pulled a blade that glowed a bad blue. Sarah fired another stun. The warlord moved like a shadow and it missed. He threw the blade. Rizur turned. It hit wing, not heart. The dragon roared, a rough, broken sound that shook the dust from the beams. Evan's eyes found the jammer on the warlord's belt. He remembered the hiss in the way station. He remembered the elites drowning in cold fog. Rules fight rules. He slid low. He reached the warlord's side while Rizur kept the blade hand busy and Sarah fired. Forced the warlord to watch 3 threats at once. Evan grabbed the jammer, twisted the dial past the safe marks and pulled 2 wires free. He shoved both into the same port. The jammer screamed. Elites on the catwalk fired. Their rods sparked, then died. Their nets lit and then burned out, leaving them with dead strings and hot hands. The warlord's helm lenses flickered, confused by its own field. Rizur struck. Not to kill, to push. The warlord stumbled toward the ring. He dug his claws into the stone. He laughed, low and ugly. "The door will take her," he said, pointing at Sarah. "It must. It loves grief." Evan shook his head. He put his hand in Sarah's. He put his other hand against Rizur's warm scale. He felt the pulse of cell, crest, and dragon line up like 3 beats in one heart. "Not just hers," Evan said. "Ours." The console felt their touch. The pledge mask thickened. The ring drank it. Lines of red fire changed to gold for a breath, then back to red as if surprised. The gate opened wider, but not to the warlord's call. "Go," Rizur said, voice cracked. "Now." Sarah looked at the ring, then at Evan. She stepped back, then forward again, into danger, to stand beside the human and the dragon. "No more pets," she said. "Partners." Together they moved past the warlord's reach. Evan kicked his wrist. The blade fell. Sarah cracked the helm with her spear butt. Rizur's wing knocked the warlord away from the gate. The vow hit. The gate locked its path, for Sarah's crest, for Rizur's name, for the human pulse that dared to bend an old law. The warlord lunged and missed. The ring pushed him back with a hot breath like a furnace sigh. A shock tore the chamber. The gate flared and sent a wave through the stronghold. Lightning ran along the catwalks. The elites fell, their rigs dead. Dust rose like gray rain. Evan, Sarah, and Rizur crossed the threshold as one. Behind them, doors slammed. The warlord roared, a sound like rocks breaking. The ring shrank to a red eye and closed with a hard click. Silence dropped. Cold stars spread. They stood on a plain of black glass under a quiet sky. No wind, no sound. A dead moon. The beacon they had pointed the stronghold to. Rizur folded heavy. His breath came slow. "I will heal," he said, and the words trembled. Sarah touched his wing. "Rest." Evan turned. The glass plane showed their faces like a dark mirror. The air felt thin and old. The moon did not move. Then the ground sang, soft as a throat clearing. Lines lit under the glass, pale and cold, making a circle around Evan's boots. A whisper rose, not in his ear, but in the deep place Rizur's name had reached. Evan, his blood went cold. Sarah looked up, sharp. Razor's eyes opened, bright with a new fear. The dead moon spoke again, a little louder. "Evan, welcome home."